තෙරුවන් සරණයි. තෙරුවන් සරණයි. We are streaming live again from the monastery when we're about to begin today's sermon. Just waiting for a few moments to allow our listeners to join in. And in the meanwhile, if you could please confirm that this audio is audible, that would be most helpful. If you could please confirm that this audio is audible. Okay, thank you for the confirmation. Thank you. Okay, so without any further ado, then I think we will make a start. As usual, then, before we commence, let us all take a moment to remind ourselves of how extremely fortunate we are that we are today in receipt of the Buddha's teaching. The only teaching there is, the only path there is for all sentient beings to redeem from the shackles of samsara, to put a stop to suffering once and for all. There is no other way, this is the only way. And so we must be so extremely grateful that we are today able to listen to the teaching of the Buddha. Let us take a moment to reflect on that and to acknowledge the endeavors of all those who have done their part to pass on the gift of the Dhamma over the last 2.5 centuries. Reflecting on that, let us all take a moment to affirm our allegiance to the Gautama Supreme Buddha, who is our master. We are his disciples, and this allegiance is a solemn oath that we take upon ourselves to commit ourselves to practicing the path, to practicing his teaching, and in doing so, to put an end to our suffering. So, wherever you may be today, which is obviously not in the monastery, you'll all be located in your homes or wherever may be convenient. Wherever you are, let us all join forces in this moment to pledge our allegiance to the Supreme Buddha, who is our teacher, and that we are his disciples. And in order to do so, let us all take a moment to recite the Dhirassa Vigata Mohasa stanza that was once recited by Upali the householder, as we are all aware. Dhirassa Vigata Mohassa Abhinna Khilassa Vijita Vijayassa Anighassa Susamachitassa Buddha silassa sadhu panyassa vessantarassa vimalassa bhagavato tassa savako hamasmi dhirassa vigatamohassa pabhinnakhilassa vijita vijayassa anighassa susamachitassa buddha silassa sadhupanyassa vessantarassa vimalassa bhagavato tassa savako hamasmi dhirassa vigatamohassa pabhinnakhilassa vijita vijayassa anighassa susamachitassa buddha silassa sadhupanyassa vessantarassa vimalassa bhagavato tassa savako hamasmi namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. And before we commence the sermon, let us all take a moment to observe the precepts and seek refuge in the Noble Triple Gem. And as you do so, let us not forget for a moment that to observe the precepts and also to take refuge in the Triple Gem, the Noble Triple Gem, is a privilege rather than a right. So therefore, let us once again consider how fortunate we are that we are able today to seek the refuge of the Noble Triple Gem. And with that reflection and contemplation in your mind, in order to observe the precepts, please repeat after me. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami, Saranaгаmanang sampunnang, Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami, Adinnādāna veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami, Kāmesu miccāchārā veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami, Musavada Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Surameraya Majjapama Datthana Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Tisaranena saddhing panchasilang dhammang sadhukang surakkhitang kattva appamadena sampadeta. Okay, you can all now be seated. And also, before we commence today's sermon, let us, as we normally do, invite all the devas, brahmas, spirits, demons, and the dead, wherever they may be, to come join us. Let us offer and extend to them this opportunity for them to witness this meritorious deed and acquire merits, in the hope that those merits will help them to redeem themselves from any woeful states that they might be born in. And for all those beings who are in the blissful plane, may they be able to listen to the teaching of the Buddha, may they understand it, comprehend it, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So, with compassion in your hearts and in your minds, as I now make this invitation, I ask you all to extend that invitation out to all those beings in this 10,000 world systems. Among them will be those who have been fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, and various other relations of yours, teachers, and all beings who will have helped, supported, and assisted you throughout this infinitely long journey that you have come through in samsara, reminding yourself that this is the perfect opportunity that you have to repay debts that we owe to all of them. Let us invite them to join us. Let us invite them to acquire merit, and let us invite them to listen to the teaching and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gachantu Devata Saddhammang Munirajansa Sunantu Sagga Mokkadang Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta. And now that we have invited all of them to join us, let us all take a moment to once again, as we normally do, as this is an essential part of our practice in the Dhamma, take a moment to remind ourselves that although today our lives have changed beyond our wildest imagination, and that as a result of the Dhamma seeping into our lives, let us not forget that throughout this samsara we have not always had this wonderful privilege of associating with noble and moral people. In fact, virtually all our associations have been with ignoble, immoral people and other beings who we will have come past in samsara. And as a result, innumerable will be the times we will have offended, reviled and desecrated the noble ones, as well as the noble triple gem, the Samma Sambuddhas, the Pacceka Buddhas, Arahata Buddhas, Anagamis, Sakrodagamis, Sotapannas, be they on the path or having attained the fruits. And the consequences of such actions, words, or thoughts of revile and desecration may be that today, as we strive to make progress in the path to Nibbana, such efforts are dwindled and we are unable to make the progress that we wish. So therefore, before we commence this sermon, let us all take a moment genuinely to ourselves and honestly to ourselves, let us all take a moment to gather up humility and humbleness within our minds and to seek the forgiveness from the Noble Ones for any thoughts, words, or actions of revile, desecration, and slander that we might have directed towards them, either knowingly or unknowingly. Okay, and having done so, let us now all make a firm resolve that may, through the course of this sermon, if there are those among you who have not yet achieved the noble states, then may, through the course of this sermon, if there are gaps of knowledge and understanding with you, then may, through the course of this sermon, you be able to fulfill such gaps in your understanding, and may you be able to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana by attaining the noble state of Sotapanna. If there are those among you who have already achieved that noble state, then may, through the course of this sermon, you be able to fulfill the subsequent stages and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So with that firm resolve in mind, I invite you all to prepare yourselves to listen to this sermon. Okay. And as I reminded you last week, it is in order that you make the most of this sermon, it is vital more than ever for you to make a really genuine and honest to heart resolve and determination that if there are points in the Dhamma that you need clarified, if there are gaps in your understanding, and what it is that you require to further your understanding and comprehension, that those points of the Dhamma may be mentioned in this sermon, may be covered and may be expounded in this sermon. So that resolve and determination is vital, particularly given that the Swamin Wahanse is unable to. You are not in the presence of the Swamin Wahanse, so it is pure merit on this occasion that can see you through. And also, as I reminded you last week, I will briefly mention it again. Do make sure that you have put aside all other distractions, including devices, your electronic devices, mobile phones. Perhaps if you're watching this on a computer screen or a laptop, then and you still have the television running in the background, then I would suggest that you switch it off. It's one or the other, and just put aside all other distractions as much as you possibly can. Perhaps there are others at home who you will need to pay some attention towards, and then that is fine. But whatever you're able to do to keep your concentration and focused towards the sermon, then I would urge you all to do so in order that you can get the most out of this sermon, given the circumstances. Okay, so let us begin. Now, for those of you who tuned into last week's sermon, I reminded you to not allow circumstances that happen around our lives, in and around our lives, to distract you from the journey that you are on. Don't let it throw you off track. This is not the first time that we have had a pandemic and various other situations. They will come and go. What we need to do is stop our coming and going. Let the pandemics, let the problems, let the economic downfalls and various other issues that bother worldly people and worldly beings, let them come and go, because that is going to be their nature. You know for a fact that this is not going to be the last pandemic. There will be others to come. That is just a nature of the nature of life and the nature of existence. Whatever arises has to pass away, and nature has its way of balancing things putting nature back into balance. Whenever humans or humankind take it into their hands, the fate of their lives and nature in itself, all nature does is, because nature considers humans just another variable in the grand equation that Mother Nature is responsible for or is the guardian of. So we as humans, although we consider ourselves to be the overlords of everything that happens around us, and we believe that, and this is all led by our ego, although we believe that we have power and control over everything, this is simply not the truth. As we talked about last week, what we believe in is not necessarily the truth. If what we believe in happens to be the truth, then that is in our favor. If what we believe in does not happen to be the truth, then that is in our disfavor. What is the truth will always be the truth. It has no bearing on the truth, what we believe in. So it is only to our advantage and our benefit that we subscribe to the truth, and that is to our benefit. No one else is to gain, only we are to gain. Mother Nature has no, it does not bother. It does not bother Mother Nature. Okay, so that is, again, the point being, things will come and go. These are the vicissitudes of life that will come towards us. They'll come and go. The ups and downs, the turmoils, the good times and the bad times, the rainy days and the sunny days, they will come and go. What we need to do is stop our comings and goings. And you'll know that what I mean by this is our coming and going in samsara, the arising and the passing away. Because wherever something arises, wherever there is existence, suffering lay there. So this is our problem, and therefore we need to focus. Whenever things are trying to distract us, we need to keep our focus. I will continue to mention this in the sermons to come, because I think this is probably where you will need our support and guidance in these weeks, given the fact that we don't have the usual live presence. So I will continue to remind you, and also considering, you're surrounded by media and all the other things that are going on right now. I would imagine that for most people around the country, around the world, people are probably glued to their TV sets these days. Either that's watching Netflix or catching up on the news or what's going on around the world, and advertisers will make this a prime opportunity to get their message out there. So I can't imagine there's any shortage of advertising. Not that there's nothing wrong with that, but we know that with every message that tries to give you the idea that existence is worthwhile, that pleasure is to be had, whether that is through sight, sound, smell, taste, or touch, that's just another lasso around your neck, pulling you in towards existence, pulling you into this world, and therefore putting you back into this riddle of samsara, and therefore into the maze of suffering, a maze that you can only escape when you have the teaching of the Buddha. I think we should all consider that we are still alive. We should all consider ourselves extremely lucky that we're still alive. I oftentimes actually do think about all these people that have passed away, and I will be the first to remind you, more people die through road accidents than with these pandemics. But even after the pandemic has come and gone, you take the total tally of everyone that's passed away, that will still not be able to uh, overtake the number of people that pass away through road accidents alone throughout the world. So okay, I think there was a brief issue with the stream. If it happens again, I will look into it. Please do keep me posted if you have any technical issues so that we can address them. So I was just to continue where we were. So these things will come and go, ladies and gentlemen. Do not allow them to distract you. And we have faced worse things than this. and at least we are not in a world war. Our ancestors, they had to, they were not very long ago. We had the world wars, the first, second world wars, and when people were in the midst of a world war, then you can imagine the situation then. So at least right now, everyone's helping out each other, everyone's looking after each other, but the next world war may just be around the corner. And particularly when in times like this, where everyone's just so destitute, everyone is in despair, and particularly when you start putting countries into lockdown. Now, I'm not making passing any comments or alluding that, or trying to give the message out that I know best, because I certainly don't. These are not affairs that we like to meddle in, only because we don't know what is right or wrong when it comes to worldly affairs. But I'm just seeing that things can happen, right? If this situation continues, it's possible in some countries people will start to loot, and they'll start ransacking shops and things like that, because after all, everyone's so existence is the number one priority for people, to get a square meal on their table in front of their family. And when the necessities, when they appears when it's possible that not through a shortage of supplies, but rather through the lockdown, these things can happen, where there's a shortage of of the bare necessities, and then people start to become restless. They, hunger, after all, is going to be a serious vexation, and fear, more so than that, and then grief. So when these things start to enter people's lives, then livelihood starts to cripple in front of their eyes, and then people can begin to resort to various atrocities to achieve their to keep their existence in going, and to seek their salvation. So this is why I say, let us not try to keep up with the world, because that's never going to be a possibility. What we need to do is to, quote unquote, get the hell out of here. And we can only do that while we have the teaching of the Buddha. So let us be heedful, because if you die, then that will be the end of the story. Wherever you may be born again, if it's not somewhere where you have the Dhamma, then once again, these things will just keep coming and going, and unfortunately, you will be none the wiser as to what you should be doing. Because right now we know what we need to be doing. Throughout the world, people are talking about all the precautions that you need to take. Everywhere they'll be saying prevention is better than cure. But the best prevention is not being here in the first place. That people forget. Well, not forget, they just don't know about it. So they'll talk about washing their hands, they'll talk about using a tissue, they'll talk about keeping social distancing, they'll talk about all of that. What they don't know about is that the best prevention is not being there in the first place. So now that you're here, all this abhisankara that has to be done to keep one safe has to happen. And that is such a headache. Just think about it. When the news broke out and people start to fear. I was only thinking just earlier on today, when perhaps I can't think not. I can't think that this didn't happen. At least a few of you must have, when we had the sermons, and a couple of weeks ago, I was feeling a little bit poorly, and I think I had a bad cough. I can't help but think that there must have been a few of you in the room during the sermon thinking, "Yikes, get me out of here. I'm probably in the wrong place right now. This Swaminwas has probably got the corona, and I am I'm I feel terrible that I'm in the room right now. So I can't imagine that couldn't have been someone, one or two people in the room that must have felt that way. So again, after all, this is fear. Fear because we are all attached to existence for as long as ignorance and attachment lay within our minds. So let us take some time to talk about ignorance, because after all, this is what we need to address. I will pull up the whiteboard, and hopefully you can I'll share the screen out and you can see what I've got on the board in just a moment. Let's see if this works. I'll go quiet for a few moments, and I'm just trying to get the screen sharing facility on. Okay, I'm sharing my screen now. Hopefully you can see that. Now, I would appreciate if someone could just drop a quick message into the chat to confirm that you can see the screen. I've got the whiteboard up. Okay, excellent, thank you. All right. What I want to try and get across to you today is to understand exactly where the problem is that we are trying to address. And I really want you to get to grips properly about what this ignorance is about. And after all, I think ignorance is, we sometimes don't spend enough time talking about ignorance. We talk about the consequences of ignorance quite a bit. We talk about how because of ignorance attachment arises, and when there's attachment there's vexation, and then once vexation is there, then you have to do the abhisankara to relieve yourself from vexation. So you know the drill. So all of that is fine, but I think given that the Buddha's instruction for one who wants to attain Nibbana is to contemplate on wisdom, in other words, the truth being anicca dukkha anatta, and through the contemplation of anicca dukkha anatta, to replace the set of wrong beliefs with the set of right beliefs. So just write it up here. The set of wrong beliefs that we have so in other words, this is ignorance. Is as we know that the world is pleasurable and it's joyful and it's essenseful. Okay? So we know that when this is our belief system, that leads to attachment, and then from there on all hell breaks loose. Right? So we know everything that happens after this. That's hell breaking loose. Okay. So this is the wrong belief set. So we know all this, and then there's the vexation, and then relief from vexation has to happen, and then despite what you do, there's grief and there's sorrow, and we've talked about all of that. We've spent quite a bit of time talking about that. Today, what I want to talk to you about really is to spend a little bit more time on this, on ignorance. because I think, if I'm not mistaken, next week is going to be the meditation week, and I want for us to go ahead with that, whether we do it at the monastery if circumstances allow us to, or we do it at home. um, I still want us to go ahead with that, because throughout history, folks, if you study history, people who have become successful are not those who come up with excuses. People in history, throughout history, are those who have become successful are those who will, because we are gifted with a mind which can think outside the box. We can be creative. So when life throws its challenges at us, when circumstances throw challenges at us, the power to think allows us to think in new ways, and be creative and find creative solutions. This is creative problem solving. So I think if we can be intelligent and clever enough and creative enough, then we can all go ahead with the meditation program next week, either that being at home or at the monastery. And I will do what we need to do uh, from my end, and I will also give you instructions on how you can best prepare yourselves for next week in the event that we are unable to meet at the monastery. So, and also I want you to spend time next week actually focusing on ignorance, because after all, when asked the Buddha, when the Buddha was asked, what is the shortest, the quickest, the swiftest way for one to attain Nibbana, the Buddha's instruction was to contemplate on anicca dukkha anatta. So in other words, what he's saying is, spend time replacing the wrong belief set with the right belief set. See, this is in his own words. This is the easiest, the fastest, the quickest, the swiftest way to attain Nibbana. Replace the wrong belief set with the right belief set. In other words, what he's saying is, you needn't bother going exploring below this line. You can stop here. You needn't bother focusing any time, or, well, in other way, for the quickest way to attain Nibbana, you needn't even worry about what's going on below this line. Spend time and focus on what's happening above this line, because after all, this is really where you can do anything. This is where everything happens. This is where the magic happens. So this is where we need to spend time, truthfully. And there's a reason for that. We have spoken about cause and effect. I'm just going to check briefly if everyone can see the screen okay once again. Okay, so the screen is still visible. And is the writing legible? I don't know about the resolution. Is it legible? Can you see what I've written on the board? I know you can see the board, but can you see what I've written on the board? If someone could just drop a message to confirm that, please. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Right, so as we were saying, let us spend some time focusing on the bit above the line. Okay, and I'm hopefully I'll be able to share with you some ideas and some ways of thinking which can help you to focus your energy and you focus your thoughts on really addressing ignorance. So what we're trying to do is replace the wrong belief set with the right belief set. This happens to be the quickest, the fastest, the speediest way to attain Nibbana. So we are trying to replace wrong belief with right belief. In other words, we are trying to replace ignorance with knowledge. After all, it is knowledge. And when knowledge is in the context of the truth about the world, if the knowledge that one holds is the absolute truth about the world, then we can qualify knowledge as wisdom. We can refer to knowledge as wisdom if this knowledge is actually referring to the ultimate truth. Because after all, you can be misinformed. In reality, pleasurable is also a knowledge. joyful and essential. This is all knowledge. Knowledge is basically something that you know. Okay, so it's something that you know. You could know the right thing, you could know the wrong thing. If you know the wrong thing, that's still knowledge, but that's called ignorance. If you know the right thing, that's also knowledge, but that's called wisdom. So when knowledge is knowledge about what is right in this world, what is truth, what is true about this world, what is true about existence, and when it's the ultimate truth, now knowledge qualifies to be called wisdom. So this is just some preamble around what we're going to be talking about. It does not matter what these words are really. So what is knowledge then? That what we hold as the world, what we consider as the world, is vexatious, that it is sufferable, and that it is essenceless. Now, because these two letters look the same, I'm going to just put this less here. Okay, so knowledge, the right knowledge about the world, and when I say the world, I'm talking about everything. This is the cosmos. So everything that is in existence. Everything that is in existence. There's only one thing that is not in existence, and that is Nibbana. And this is why you can't call it a thing. Because how can you refer to an entity which is not an entity? But that's not to say that Nibbana does not exist, but it's not conditioned. So therefore you couldn't indicate, or you couldn't point to Nibbana, you couldn't uh, visualize Nibbana, you couldn't instantiate Nibbana as a Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. Hopefully that makes sense. So anything else in this world, you can express it in terms of Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana. But there's only one thing that you cannot express in terms of Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankara, Vijnana, and that is Nibbana. We talk about Nibbana, of course. We talk about Raga ke, Dvesha ke, Moha ke, that Nibbana is the extinguishing of, quenching of desire, aversion, and delusion. We talk of Nibbana as being the cessation of all formations. Etang santang etam panitang yadidan sabba sankara samato. The extinguishing of craving, of attachment, right? So these are all ways of expressing Nibbana, but really what we are saying is that is not Nibbana in a sense. What we are trying to do is express Nibbana by using language which is also a worldly construct. So it's a bit like if someone were to speak about, let's say they have a school in the ocean, and the fish are trying to teach baby fish about what land is like, and they will talk about trees, they'll talk about sand dunes, they'll talk about waterfalls, but these are all words which are used to express what that is, but until you actually go there and then you realize it for yourself, it's after all simply an expression of it in a worldly sense. Okay, so I think that's something we all know, but I just wanted to clarify that. So anyway, let's come back to what we're talking about. We're talking about knowledge, because we're going to be spending some time today talking about how do we attack ignorance with right knowledge. Now, here's the thing. We know that the reason we attach to things is because it's pleasurable. If we didn't find something pleasurable, see, and I want you to think about this, the way when I say that we find something as being pleasurable, it's really when we think of something as being pleasurable. And that's really a very important word, because see, I'm going to write down two statements, and I want you to see the distinction between them. X is pleasurable, and X, I think, is pleasurable. So they're both statements. They're both statements. When we say that X is pleasurable, so something, okay, you can substitute this with anything. Say ice cream. That's the best I can draw an ice cream. An ice cream is pleasurable. Looks like broccoli, but it's an ice cream. So ice cream is pleasurable. That is a fact. But what if ice cream is not really pleasurable, but you think it's pleasurable? I think. These two words, I think, although it sounds so simple, I think, I mean, how much harm can that do? Well, actually, it does all the harm. All harm is done by I think. Because I think refers to our knowledge about something. I mean, this is also knowledge. When you say X I think is pleasurable, so this is your expression of the way you think the world is. Remember what we said right at the beginning? The way you think that something is has no bearing on what it really is. I think some time ago we talked about the bottle that's got poison in it. I don't know if it was in a singular sermon or an English sermon, but just to remind ourselves, there's a bottle, okay? In this bottle, there's a liquid, there's some liquid, and some guy thinks that what's in the bottle, the contents of the bottle, is water. So what they do is they pick it up and they start gulping it down. Now, regardless of what the contents of the bottle are, there are two things you can do with this, with the contents of the bottle. Okay, so there are two things that you can do with the contents of the bottle. The contents being whatever the liquid is. There are two things you can do with it. And what are these two things? You can either drink it, not oink it, that's just Microsoft. I don't know why it does that. Let's try that again. Okay, thank you. It's either drink it or not drink it. You can either drink it or you can not drink it. You can't do a third thing with the contents of the bottle. I mean, in terms of what you do with the contents of the bottle and your mouth. One could say, well, I could throw it down the sink. I'm not referring to that. I'm talking about consumption of that liquid. Okay, that's when it can actually do something to your internals. You can either drink it or you can not drink it. You can refrain from drinking it. The outcome of these two things are very different. If you drink it now, the contents of this bottle can have an effect on you. If you don't drink it, then the contents of this bottle cannot have an effect on you, be that a good effect or a bad effect. Right? So hopefully you understand what I mean by that. The contents of this bottle can only have an effect on you if you drink it. It cannot have an effect on you if you don't drink it. It may be that the contents of the bottle is ambrosia, food of the gods, or it might be a very powerful, a potent medicine of some sort, in which case, and maybe it gives you longevity, or maybe it makes you deathless. I can't imagine why anyone would want that, but let's say that's what it does. You could drink it and now it has an effect on you, or you could not drink it and now it has no effect on you. So these are the only two things you can do with this. It matters hugely on the choice that you make here. The choice that you make here will determine the effect on you. Here it has an effect. Here it has no effect. It has no effect on you. But if you drink it, it has an effect on you. This is the only way that you can get the contents of the bottle to have an effect on you, and that is by drinking it. There's no other way you can make it have an effect on you. Now, what effect it has on you, whether this is a positive effect or a negative effect, is determined by the contents of the bottle, not by what you think the contents of the bottle are. I'm pulling up this simile because I want to make a distinction here, and it's a very subtle one, but I hope you're all able to get it. Right? So here's the thing. Drinking it or not drinking it is going to have an effect on you. Okay? Drinking it or not drinking it is going to have an effect on you. If you don't drink it, it's not going to have an effect on you. If you drink it, it's going to have an effect on you. These are the only two things you could do with it. The contents of the bottle. You can either drink it or you cannot drink it. As in, you don't drink it. If you don't drink it, it's not going to have it doesn't matter what the contents of the bottle are. It could be the best thing, it could be the worst thing. It has no effect on you if you don't drink it. If you drink it, it has an effect on you. That might be a good effect, it might be a bad effect. It's not what you think the contents of the bottle are which determine whether it has a good effect or a bad effect on you. It's you drinking it and what the contents of the bottle actually are. So if I were to say this is what it actually is, or let's say this is what you think it is, okay? So I'm going to draw a speech bubble to kind of say that this is what someone thinks it is, and this is what it actually is. So I'm going to draw a magnifying glass. So I'm trying to give the idea that a scientist, looks through the magnifying glass, he sees the molecules in it, something, and determines what it really is. So this is what someone thinks it is. This is what someone thinks it is, and this is what it really is. What it really is, okay, so wherever you are, try and see if you can answer this question. The effect that this liquid has on a person who drinks it is determined by this or this. See if you can answer the question. I'll repeat that. The effect that this liquid has on the person who drinks it. Why are we only talking about this? Well, if you don't drink it, it cannot have an effect. Whatever that effect is, that effect cannot be manifested within you because you haven't consumed it. So you have nothing to do with it. So we don't necessarily even need to talk about this any longer. So we're talking about this path. The contents of this liquid can have an effect on you, can only have an effect on you if you drink it. Is it what you think it is that has that particular effect, or is it what it really is that has that particular effect? And I think you know the answer. The answer is it is what it really is. So, see, let's say this is A and this is B. Okay? So A is whether you drink it or you don't drink it. B is the effect it has on you. And clearly, if you drink it, so if A, then you have B. And that B could either be good. Sorry, I don't mean be good. I mean B as in the letter B, and B bad. And again, I don't mean B bad. My choice of letters is terrible. Okay, so I mean B as in the letter B. So it's a good B and it's a bad B. As in not a bee, the bee that flies around. I'm talking about the letter B. Okay, so if A happens, then you're going to get either a good B or a bad B. Let's say this is X, this is Y. So X is what the contents of the bottle really is, and Y is what you think it is. Now, X determines this or this. All right, try that again. Okay, does X determine this or does it determine this? Let me put that into words. Whether X or Y, really. Okay, X or Y. Does it determine A or does it determine B? In other words, let's just, okay, sorry, I'll take the Y out just for a moment, just to keep it simple. Does what it really is, okay? Does what it really is determine whether you drink it, or does it determine what happens to you after you drink it? I'll ask you again. Does what it really is, what the contents of this liquid really is, determine whether you drink it or not, or whether what happens to you after you drink it or not? Let's try and substitute some liquids into this, put some values into these variables, and I think it will make more sense. Let's say this is milk. Okay, what it really is milk. This is milk. And what you think it is um, Okay, water, right? Let's keep it simple. Water. Now, when you drink, so you this is milk. This is in fact milk, and you want to add it to a cup of tea that you have made. Okay, you made a cup of tea, so it's plain tea, and you're going to be adding the contents of this bottle, whatever it is, into your cup of tea, and it's actually milk. So does the fact that it's milk determine whether you're going to add it to your cup of tea, or what's going to happen to your cup of tea after you add it? You'll see that the fact that it's really milk is going to determine the effect on the tea after you have added it, not whether you're going to add it or not. What's going to determine this is not X, it's actually Y. In other words, what you think it is. What you think it is going to determine whether you add it to your tea or not. So this is right and this is wrong. And this is right and this is wrong. Hopefully you're seeing the distinction here. The fact that it's milk, not what you think it is, the fact that it's milk is going to determine the effect on your beverage, not whether you add it or not. What's going to determine whether you add it to your tea or not is not what it actually is, it's what you think it is. So this Y, so that looks like a cross on top of that arrow, so I'm going to rub that out. Please excuse me. What I meant to say was this is the right thing. Okay, so the fact that it's the fact that it's milk is going to determine the effect that it has on your beverage. It's not going to determine whether you add it to your tea or not. But what you think it is not going to have any bearing on what the effect is on your beverage. It's going to determine whether you add it to your tea or not. So do you see now, if X and Y are different, now we have a problem. Now we have a problem. If X and Y are the same, then we have no problem. Because then you can do what you want to do and you will get the desired result, the desired effect. See, those two words, right? Desired effect. Desired effect. These two words actually try and, they convey what I'm trying to express here. There's one, desired, and there's two, effect. Effect is what really happens. Desired is what you want to happen. What really happens is determined by what it really is. What you want to happen is determined by what you think it is. Now, what you think it is, if it's not the same as what it really is, now we have a problem. Because you think it's milk, but it's water. Adding no amount of water to your tea is going to make it a milk tea. But adding even the tiniest amount of milk to your tea, even if you think it's water, it's going to make it a milk tea. So you see, if X and Y happen to be the same, then you can live happily, peacefully, because you're going to have the desired effect. But if X and Y are not the same, now you have a problem because you're desiring one, but the effect is another. Okay, so hopefully that the message is clear there. Now let's bring it back to what we were talking about earlier. Knowledge is essentially this. Y, the letter Y here, is what you think it is. So you see, this is also knowledge. When knowledge is the truth, it's called wisdom. When knowledge is false, it's called ignorance. So knowledge being what you know, what you hold as true about the world. When that is the truth, now it's called wisdom. When that is not the truth, now it's called ignorance. Now replace this milk with poison. Now you can see how much of a difference it's going to make. Okay, replace it with poison. Now just think about what's going to happen. You think it's water, but it's really poison. The only thing you're going to be doing with this liquid is drink it or not drink it. If you don't drink it, now it doesn't matter what you think and what it really is, because the disparity between these two, X not being the same as Y, has no effect on you if you don't drink it. So really, if you actually extend what I'm trying to express here and think of it in terms of an arahant who does not drink it or who does not attach to the world, to an arahant it really doesn't matter whether this world is a nitya or anicca, because they don't attach to it. So whether the world is to their liking or not has no effect on an arahant because they don't attach to it. Okay, so that's an advanced bonus for those who completely get what I'm trying to express here. If you didn't, don't worry. The penny will drop later on. So coming back to the example, if you think it's poison, then of course you're not going to drink it. But what if it was water? Let's say it was water and you thought it was poison. So let's switch these two things around. Let's switch these two things around. Okay. So you think it's water. Sorry, you think it's poison, but it's really water. Now what's going to happen? Well, if you think it's poison, you're not going to drink it. Certainly not if you're in a sane mind. Now you're not going to drink it. If you don't drink it, well, of course, then we're going down this path, not drinking path. Then it's not going to have an effect on you. It's really water, so really it wouldn't have had a deleterious effect on you. It wouldn't have had a negative effect on you. But so what? It's not going to have an effect on you anyway, because you haven't allowed it the opportunity. You haven't given it the opportunity to have an effect on you because you haven't drunk it. And you didn't drink it because you thought it was poison. Right? So, in other words, if the world, or if this, before I jump to the connection to what we are talking about here, let me just conclude that if the world was a good place and you thought it was a bad place to be in, you'd be fine. So in other words, if the world was pleasurable, joyful, and essential, in reality, if it was pleasurable, joyful, and essential, and if that was the way it really was, but you thought it was vexatious, sufferable, and essenceless, nothing would happen to you. You wouldn't be in suffering, because if something's vexatious, sufferable, and essenceless, there's not a snowball's chance in hell you're going to attach yourself to it. But unfortunately, these two things are swapped around. X and Y are swapped around. This is the problem. Swapped around how? In reality, it's poison. In reality, it's poison. But people think it's water. If it was the other way around. In other words, if this happened to be water, but if people thought it was poison, they wouldn't drink it. And if you didn't drink it, nothing's going to happen. But if you think it's water, so if it happened to be water and you thought it was poison, now you're not going to drink it, so therefore nothing's going to happen. But the fact is, it's poison and people think it's water. Now you drink it. So you see, whether you drink it or not is not determined by what it really is. It's determined by what you think it is. Do you see the problem there? Really, shouldn't whether you drink it or not be determined by what it really is? Just think about it. Right? Shouldn't it be determined by what it really is? I mean, isn't that why, if you say you want to make a cup of tea and you open the fridge and you get out a bottle of milk, right? If it's been a few days since you gotten it, chances are you're going to take the lid off and you're going to sniff it just a little bit just to check it's all fine. Sometimes you'll check the expiry date, and the expiry date shows that you've still got 1 or 2 days life left in the milk. But just to be safe, I've done this plenty of times, and I'm sure you have. You'll take a sniff of it just to make sure, just to make double sure. Because what you really, when we say we want to make something double sure, what we're saying is, I'm hoping that what it really is what I think it is. Isn't that what we do when we check something? I'm hoping that what it really is what I think it is. Because we know that if these two things are not the same, there's going to be a problem. Because unfortunately, what you do with it is determined not by what it really is, What you do with it is determined by what you think it is. But what happens to you after you've consumed it is not determined by what you think it is. That's determined by what it really is. So, therefore, if the two things are not the same, as in, if what you think it is and what it really is are not the same, then we have all sorts of problems. But also, again, in this situation, let's say the milk has not really gone bad, but you take a sniff and you think, let's say you just got an odd nose, right? So something's wrong with your nose. So you take a sniff and you think it's gone off. That's only because you haven't brushed your teeth today. So you're actually smelling your own mouth. You're smelling it and you're sniffing it, and it smells like it's gone off, but the milk is fine. Chances are you're just going to pour it down the sink. What's happened to you? Clearly nothing. Nothing's happened to you. I know. One could say, well, that's just a wasting milk, so you shouldn't be doing that. That's not the point I'm talking about, right? So yes, we've poured some good milk down the sink, but I'm talking about what happens to you, right? Physically, what happens to you, health-wise. Nothing's happened to you. You're not in any worse off state than when you started. You're perfectly fine, because the milk was fine, but you thought it was bad, so therefore you didn't drink it. See, when you don't drink something, it does not matter what the world is. As in, when you don't take part in the world, when you don't engage, in other words, when you don't attach, now it does not matter what the world is, whether it's good or whether it's bad, whether it's terrible, whether it's beautiful, whether it's wonderful, whether it's disgusting, whether it's vexatious, whether it's pleasurable. It makes no difference. The significance is, because beings are prone to attaching themselves, or other in terms of this simile, drinking what they find in this bottle. Now it matters. Okay, and this is when it matters. It matters what's in the bottle, because you want to drink it. When you go shopping, you go to the supermarket and you buy a bottle of milk, you bring it home. Are you also concerned about what the contents of all the other bottles in the supermarket are? Have they also gone off? I mean, do you make it consider your duty to every day go into the supermarket and open up all the milk bottles and check that they haven't gone off, just so it's the right thing to do, is your duty as a good citizen of the country? No, of course not. You wouldn't do that, because you're not concerned about that, because you don't drink it. You drink what's in your fridge, not what's in the fridge in the supermarket. Therefore, you're concerned about whether what you think is what's in this bottle, not what's in every bottle, because you're not going to drink every bottle. You're only going to drink this bottle. So in other words, only what you drink, you need to be careful if what it is what you think it is. Okay, so hopefully that is clear to everyone. And the reason I'm stressing this point and I'm trying to make a point here is because I'm only trying to make a point here because it's sorry. I'm trying to make a point here because the knowledge of, if your knowledge is what it really is, in other words, if your knowledge is the truth, you see that these are two different things, right? Knowledge is not the same as the truth, right? The truth is the truth. Your knowledge may be the truth, may not be the truth. What you know about the world may be the truth, it may not be the truth. Okay, so if these two things are one, in other words, if your knowledge is the truth, then you can live happily. So why do people suffer then? If your knowledge is the truth about the world, then people can live happily. So why do people suffer then? I think you have the answer. It's because people's knowledge is not the truth. This is what ignorance is. When your knowledge is not the truth, that is what we call ignorance. When your knowledge is the truth, that is what we call wisdom. Okay, so you would only drink it based on what you think about what's in the bottle. Likewise, you will only attach to something based on what you think that which you're attaching to is. So of course we know that the things we can attach to mentally are rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara and vijnana. We can't attach to anything else because the mind essentially does not know anything else to attach to. So these are the only things that the mind can perceive. These are the only things that are in the realm of the mind. Okay, when we talk about the mind, rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, vijnana, we know this stuff, right? So these are the only things that we can attach to, and we only attach to this based on not what it actually is. It's based on our knowledge of what it is. It is our belief set that determines whether we attach to rupa, vedana, sanya, sankhara, and vijnana, not whether not what it really is. If what we know about it is what it really is, then we are not going to attach, because what it really is vexatious, sufferable, and essenceless. So this is the theory. How do you apply this? How do you apply this? I'm going to come to that, but just before I do that, I'm going to go through this once again just to make sure everyone's got the concept. I mean, this might sound like, oh, it's all too confusing. So, I mean, what are you talking about? A poison? You might as well have just given me a bottle of poison. Right? No. You don't get flustered and don't get worried about any of this stuff. This is all simple stuff. You know all of this. I'm just trying to express this in a way where it becomes obvious to you that the problem here is ignorance. Some people try to battle with rupa, others try to battle with vedana, and others try to battle with, the physical objects and people and things and events and incidents. People try to battle with all sorts of these things. Sometimes, someone sees a good-looking girl, and he or she thinks that, this is my problem. Why do they have good-looking girls in this world? If not for them, I would have become a Buddha by now. This is rubbish. That thinking is flawed. Or if someone's favorite item of food is apple, right? Then they are waiting for a day when the world is void of apples so that they can attain Nibbana. That's just wrong. Because it's not the apple that brings you suffering. It's your knowledge about something that has the potential to bring you suffering. If that knowledge is not the truth, that's when there is room for suffering to enter your life. If that knowledge is the truth, there's no room for suffering to enter your life. So you see, you need to begin to understand. You need to understand that the knowledge about something is so important. It's so important. I can't emphasize it enough. We don't need to spend a lot of time talking about Abhisankara and the Vijnana and the Namarupa and all of this stuff about the Paticcasamuppada. Of course, there's value in that, but really, the Buddha did us a huge favor, a massive favor, by bringing it all back down to its roots. And he said, avidya pacha. He might as well have stopped there. Truthfully, the Buddha might as well have stopped there. If we have complete conviction in the Buddha, he might as well have stopped at avidya pacha. That's it. Now go do it. You don't need all the other sankara and the vijnana and the namarupa and the salayatan and the passa and the vedana. Seriously, you don't need all that stuff. You need it to understand the Dhamma, but not to comprehend suffering. Not to comprehend suffering and to realize happiness. To experience the bliss of Nibbana, all you need to know is that ignorance is the culprit here. Ignorance is the problem here. Ignorance is the root of all of this. Ignorance is a situation which can be expressed by the statement, it's where your knowledge about something is not the truth. So if someone asks you what is ignorance, you could simply say it's when knowledge is not the same as the truth. It's when what you know about something is not the same as what it really is. That is simply ignorance. That is ignorance. Ignorance is the problem time and time and time again. Yes, of course, attachment is the cause of all suffering. But attachment is rooted in ignorance. Where there is no ignorance, there is no attachment. If attachment is drinking the contents of the bottle, if you knew it was poison, would you drink it? But you think it's water and it's really poison, would you not drink it? You think it's water and it's really poison. Would you not drink it? I'll ask again. It, it's really poison. Or you think it's water and it's really poison. Would you not drink it? Of course you drink it. Why? Because you think it's water. Oh, but hang on, it's poison. Well, you know that. That's what ignorance is. So you see, ignorance is what causes you to take the step of drinking the contents of the bottle, and then what happens to you is not determined by what you thought it was. What happens to you is determined by what it really was, which is what I've tried to express here. X, or X, this X here, or what it really is determines what happens to you, which is the B. But whether you drink it or not is determined by a completely different factor. See, do you see that there's a problem here? Ideally what should be is what you think it is should determine what really happens to you, and what it really is should determine whether you're going to drink it or not. If it was that way around, then all things would be fine. Then of course you'd always get the desired effect. Excuse me. I mean, if that were the case, you could drink anything and it would be water. Right? I mean, if what happens to you is what you think it is, or if what happens to you is determined by what you think it is, then you could just simply drink anything and you can get the desired effect, because what happens to you is determined by what you think it is. So basically you all they'd have to manufacture is paracetamol for every disease there is. Why? Because if what that drug is, the effect of the drug on your body is determined by what you think it is, then you'd only need one drug. That should cure everything, because all you need to do is you could, before you take the pill, you just think, I want this drug to do this to me, and then you drink it, and then it does that to you. So desired effect. See, but that is not how an effect takes place, or how an effect materializes. The effect is determined by the causes, not what you think it is. This is anicca all over. See, anicca is essentially this problem here, folks. It's where x does not equal y. That is what anicca is. X does not equal y. So essentially, what something does to you is not determined by what you think it is. What something does to you is determined by what it really is. That is anicca. Because these are the causes that determine the effect, not this. This will only determine, in other words, what you think it is only going to determine whether you're going to attach to it or not. Again, that's cause and effect, yes. This cause will only determine this effect. This cause will determine this effect. Do you see how different causes determine a different effect? And there's no way that you can get this cause to determine this effect. It doesn't work like that. And therein lies the problem. Therein lies the problem, where these two things are not the same. If these two things are not the same, now you're doing something expecting something else. So you're doing expecting the desired, but the effect is not the desired. So that's where the mismatch is. So therefore, this is how once you get this, once you really understand this, you can really apply this when you focus, when you do your meditation. Okay, this is what I want you to, if you're, for those of you who have been doing your 15 minutes every day, this is something that you can start to look at. And also we're going to be spending some time next week during our meditation session actually focusing on this, because I was talking to somebody recently about an issue that they were having, and that's when sort of this came up, or some parts of this, and during this sermon I've been filling in other bits. I think I mentioned this once in a sermon, but I'll mention it again. Let's say there's a car, okay, and it's traveling on a road, and we want to get from here. Let's see. Yeah. So we want to get from here to here. Okay. So going forwards would be going in this direction, of course. Going backwards would be going in this direction, because forward and backward is of course relative. So going forward in relation to where we want to get to would be going in this direction. Going backwards would be going in the opposite direction. Now, I'm going to give you three states, and I want you to, I was going to say I want you to tell me, but you can't tell me. I want you to think about which of these three states is more or less conducive to this person reaching their destination, right? So here we go. Situation one. I put my, so there's the driver here, and looks like he's standing on the steering wheel, but I promise you he's not. He's seated, and it's just that he's holding onto the steering. Okay, so he's got a gear stick, and he's putting his gears, changing gears, shifting gears. Now, situation one. Let's say he's only got three states that gear could be in. One is forward, the other is neutral, and the other is reverse. Okay, so there are only two gears. In other words, so there's forward gear, there's reverse gear, and when it's not in gear, you call it neutral. Now, situation one, he needs to get from A to B. Which of these three states is going to be more conducive? First, he puts in forward gear. So he puts in forward gear. Is putting it in forward gear conducive, or does it support this person getting from A to B? And the answer is of course. Of course. I mean, how else? Of course. Situation 2. Putting it into neutral. No, sorry, should have put a tick there. So now he's put gear into neutral. Okay, so he shifted from forward to neutral. Is the gear that he's in now, or basically not being in gear, being in neutral, conducive to this person getting from A to B? And the answer is no. Why? Well, no matter how long you're in neutral, you're not going to get from A to B because the vehicle's not moving. It's going to be stationary. Fair enough. Situation 3. He puts the gear in reverse. He puts the gear in reverse, and his intention is to get from A to B. How conducive is putting into reverse gear? How conducive is that to this person getting from A to B? Is it the same as this, where he put it in forward gear? Is it the same as this, where he put it in neutral? Or is it actually worse than both of these? So the answer is obviously it's worse than both of them. I'm actually going to put two crosses here. Why is that? Because not only is it not going to get him to his destination, which is this, had he been able to get to destination, so it's not going to be able to let him do that. And not only is it going to keep him stationary, which is, I mean, it's not as good as getting to the destination, but it's not as bad as putting into reverse gear, because what's going to happen then is he's actually going to start moving in the opposite direction. And eventually, when he realizes his mistake, he's not only going to then have to cover the distance of A to B, but if he's traveled being in reverse gear back to this position here, now he's going to have to make up the distance that is traveled here also. So previously he started off at A, he only had to cover this, but now that he went into reverse gear, it's not just this distance he has to cover, he also has to cover this distance, right? So surely that hopefully makes sense to everybody. Why am I talking about this? It's not to give you driving lessons over a Skype call. It's to help you figure out and understand, this is all about ignorance again. This is all about ignorance. I said I was mentioning this when I was speaking to someone recently, and I was trying to help them understand when you contemplate on anicca, when you contemplate on ignorance or rather wisdom. So your wisdom contemplation. How do you replace your wrong belief set with the right belief set? Right. The advice I gave them was, what they were doing was they were going from forward to neutral gear. They were going from forward to neutral gear. So this person I was speaking to, what he was saying was, Swaminatha, when I meditate, I reflect on the fact that the world is not pleasurable, so good. So, previously he said, I used to think that the world was pleasurable. Okay? I used to think that the world was pleasurable. And therefore, he was in, let's say, if Nibbana, so to connect to this simile, let's say getting to Nibbana is um, going from A to B. Okay, let's say it's going from A to B. Okay, so he said, I used to be in reverse gear. Why does he say that? I used to be in reverse gear. If getting to Nibbana is going in this direction, then which direction was he going in until now? He was going in the opposite direction. Why? Because he was in reverse gear. So he was going backwards. With every passing moment, with every passing day, he's going backwards. Why? He's in reverse gear. So this is where his contemplation used to be before listening to the Dhamma, that the world is pleasurable, joyful, and essenseful. We know that this is ignorance. Okay? What he's telling me is, Swaminatha, now I reflect on the fact that the world is not pleasurable, that it's not joyful, and it's not essenseful. So what he's saying is, it's not pleasurable, it's not joyful, and it's not essenseful. Well, yeah, great, good. Anyways, it's good, not great. Why? Because what he's done is he's shifted from reverse gear to neutral gear in terms of this simile. So it's not pleasurable. You used to think it's pleasurable, but now it's not pleasurable. Excuse me. You used to think it was joyful, but now it's not joyful. You used to think it was essenseful, but it's not essenseful. See, you should be able to see now how what is done is shift from reverse to neutral. But that's not enough. True, it's not going to make you any worse off than you are already, but it's not going to take you to Nibbana if this happens to be Nibbana. It's not going to keep you going backwards, but it's not going to take you forward either. To move forward, you need to shift to forward gear. That's where you move from not just something's not pleasurable. You can't stop at, oh, it's not pleasurable, it's not joyful, it's not essenseful. You can't stop there. You need to take it one step further. Not only is it not pleasurable, but actually it's vexatious. Not only is it not joyful, it's sufferable. And not only is it not essenseful, it's essenceless. So, on the number line, if you'll remember, there was a 0, there was negative numbers, there was -1, there was +1, right? You remember the number line when we learned at school. If going this way is the path to Nibbana, then and where we were was on this side of the number line, it's not enough for us to jump from a -1 to a 0. What we need to do is to continue from a 0 to +1. So it's actually a two-stepped approach. The contemplation of your understanding of wisdom or anicca dukkha anatta is not only. So here's the point I'm trying to get across to you today. Okay, so try and see if you can pay attention and focus on this. What I'm trying to do here is to give you this understanding of anicca dukkha anatta, not to stop you at thinking, well, Swaminatha says it's anicca, so surely it's not nicca. That's not what that is not only what anicca means. Anicca does not mean it's not nicca. It's not. It goes beyond that. So anicca means it's not nicca and then some. That's what I'm trying to say. So dukkha means it's not sukha and then some. You need to go further. You can't stop at it's not pleasurable. I'll give you another example, right? Do you remember I certainly used to do this as a kid when we used to go to the beach. I used to have this habit of, as a young child, collecting seashells. So collected seashells and little pebbles that you find on the beach, and I'd bring them home. Don't ask me why. That's just me. I used to bring them home. I think all young kids do those things when they go to the beach. They just find it interesting. Something you've never seen before, a seashell. You bring it home. My parents never said anything about it. So what I used to do was I used to bring them home. And you remember that red shelf that I got? I think I told you the story a long time ago. How everything in my bedroom was red. Right? If you remember the story, if you've been listening to the sermons, you'll know. I'm not going to tell you the story again. So I had that red shelf, my red bookshelf, on which I used to lay down all these seashells that I collected from the beach. So I had quite a few. I had a good collection of seashells. My parents never said a thing. They never said a thing because the seashells didn't do me any harm. That's why. The seashells didn't do me any harm. It didn't do me any good. It didn't do me any good. I mean, what good is me collecting seashells going to do to me? Is it going to make me grow up faster? Is it going to make me more learned? Is it going to help me become rich quicker? None of these things, right? So it's not going to really help me do anything. It's not going to help me achieve anything in my life. So it didn't do me any good, but it didn't do me any bad. It didn't do me any bad either. This is why my parents didn't do anything about it. They were fine with me collecting shells. But what if one fine day they learned on the news, or some new science discovery, that seashells, not seashells on the seashore, that seashells have the potential to cause a cancer. If somehow they figured, or they got to know that seashells, as in not the country, the seashells that I collected on the beach, if seashells have the potential to cause a cancer, if it's cancerous, if it's carcinogenic, or being in its proximity, then you could imagine it would be a very different situation at home. Had the moment that they found out about this, they would ask me to, they wouldn't be asking me, they would take the whole thing and go and, dump it somewhere. See, again, I want you to see the distinction here. I thought the seashells were great things to have, were great collectible items. Therefore, I brought them home. I brought them home. Right? So that's me bringing them home. Me bringing them home was not a problem to my parents, because I thought it was going to do me good. I thought it was going to do me good, so I brought it home. It didn't do me any good. It didn't do me any good. Because it didn't do me any good, so what? See, here's the problem. If something doesn't do you any good, do you need to throw it away? Just think about it. I mean, do you not have like lots of stuff at home now? If you've been hoarding stuff over the years, right? Thinking that someday I'm going to be using it, and it's been about 10 years now. You can't remember the last time you even touched it, and it's just been gathering dust, and it's food for the termites at home, right? So, um, it doesn't do you any good, but didn't mean that you threw it away. Just because something's not good doesn't mean you're going to throw it away. Your mind is going to want to, or you're going to want to throw something away, right? See the last of it. Only when you really get it that not only is it not good, but it's bad for you. When you know that something's bad for you, then you no longer want to be keeping it or holding on to it. That's when you jump into action. That's when you want to do something about it. So, not good is not the same as bad. Okay, so I want you to understand this, because neutral gear is not the same as forward gear. It's not as bad as reverse gear, but it's not the same as forward gear. If you are someone who wants to attain Nibbana, it's not enough to think that anicca is simply not being nicca. Because I can imagine in some places they may be, it's not anybody's fault, it's just the way people understand it. It may be that some people will say, well, anicca is a in front of nicca, therefore what it's trying to say is it's just not nicca, because a simply means it's the opposite of this. Yes, it's not wrong, it's true, but what I want you to understand is anicca is that it's not nicca and then some. It's not just not being nature, but it's more than that. It's that extra bit which is going to get you to really, really, really want to get the hell out of here. So let's go back to what we drew up on the board earlier, right? So we were talking about ignorance. The wrong set of belief is the problem here, because when you have misinformation, when you have wrong knowledge, when you have the wrong knowledge about something. So wrong knowledge is essentially when what you believe is true is not true. Or it could also be the other way around. When what you believe is not true is the truth. I mean, that's both wrong knowledge. But the time when it becomes problematic is when what it really is can actually cause you a problem, but you don't know what it really is. Or you think it's harmless when it's harmful. If it were harmless and you thought it was harmful, really no problem. So if the world was really harmless and you thought it was harmful, no problem. You'd still attain Nibbana. But the problem is the world is harmful, but our ignorance tells us that it's harmless. Now then, there's a huge problem. So when you contemplate on the things that bother you, right? So yes, of course, when you do your meditation, here's why you'll probably be thinking along these lines. Let's say someone likes biscuits. Okay, so if a plate of biscuits or is put in front of you, then it's kind of like you go into a frenzy. Let's say so that your focus of your meditation is biscuits and your attachment to biscuits. Now, of course, you can replace biscuits with anything else. I'm just using one example, so you can substitute that with anything you want. Okay, so let's take biscuits, because I'm fed up of cake just as much as you are, right? So let's take biscuit until someone says enough of biscuits. So can we go to something else? So there's biscuits, and our contemplation or our focus of meditation, our object of meditation is I am strongly attached to biscuits, and I know that that's a vexation. How do I address this problem? Attachment causes suffering, true, but thinking about attachment causes suffering, no amount is going to fix the problem. That is just knowledge. In fact, I mean, that's just information. It's good to know that attachment causes suffering, but attachment causes suffering. The knowledge of that is not going to make you any less attached. Let me repeat that. Knowing that attachment causes suffering is not going to make you any less attached, because attachment is rooted in ignorance. So you can't be thinking, well, it's pleasurable, joyful, essential, but attachment causes suffering, so I'm not going to attach. It doesn't work like that. Because if something's pleasurable, joyful, essential, even if you want to get rid of attachment and you still see it as being pleasurable, you're not going to get rid of attachment. No matter how much you keep chanting, attachment causes suffering, attachment causes suffering, attachment causes suffering. Hey, but it's pleasurable. Attachment causes suffering, attachment causes suffering, attachment causes suffering. Well, it's still pleasurable. Nothing's going to happen to attachment. Nothing's going to happen to attachment. This is why we need to bring it all the way back home. Bring it back home, the home run. You need to go the whole mile. You need to bring it back home to ignorance. You need to bring it back home to ignorance and attack it there. Ignorance is simply misinformation. This is wrong knowledge, where your knowledge about something is not what it really is. So when you contemplate on that plate of biscuits, how do you contemplate on that now there? You will be thinking along, some of you will be thinking something like this. When I eat biscuits, I feel pleasure. Oh, I shouldn't really be feeling pleasure. It's disgusting. People shouldn't be feeling pleasure. How revolting pleasure. No. Stop. That's just the symptom. Pleasure is a symptom. No point in trying to address symptoms when the root cause has not been touched. You experience pleasure is a symptom. When you know that you're experiencing pleasure, all you need to know is there's a problem. Right? So don't worry about the symptoms. Okay, let me repeat that. Don't worry about the symptoms. The symptoms are not not for you to worry about. The symptoms are there for you to know about something, not worry about it. So when you experience pleasure, it's not for you to worry about pleasure. Pleasure is there to indicate to you that there's a problem. In other words, you should be glad you sense pleasure. What if, I mean seriously, what if you were vexing, but there was no way you could know about it? So you couldn't sense pleasure. Let's say there was a pleasure nerve and someone kind of removed the pleasure nerve. So now you can no longer sense pleasure, but all the vexations, they're still there. That'd be terrible, because now you've got an infection, but there are no symptoms. No symptoms does not mean no infection. You're still infected. Of course, the symptoms will bother you, but what I'm saying is the pleasure is not what you need to worry about. Don't feel disgusted about yourself that you sense pleasure, because pleasure is a good indicator that there's a problem. In other words, when was the last time, right? As you're driving your car down the road, and the fuel indicator on your car it starts to beep, right? And you look at the dashboard, and it shows that it's the arrow is now pointing towards the E, so you're running out of fuel. When was the last time you took a gun and shot at the fuel indicator? You said, "How dare you bother me?" you know that would be a madman, right? Surely, because should you not be glad and grateful that someone's invented the fuel gauge? Because then you know that there's a problem. So the fuel gauge is simply an indicator that there's a problem. Are you not grateful? I mean, I've seen some cars where the fuel gauge is not working, so they're driving along the road. It's anybody's guess when this car's going to come to a stop. It's anybody's guess. So they have to keep thinking, when was the last time I refueled? How many miles have I done now? So I think I had better go and refuel now. But when you have a fuel gauge that's working, you don't need to worry about any of this stuff. All you need to do is pull up to a fuel station and get refueled, because you have the fuel gauge. Likewise, pleasure is your fuel gauge. Pleasure is your indicator that there's a problem. So don't try to fight with the symptoms. Don't try to fight with the indicators. The indicators are your best friends, telling you that there's a problem. It used to be that without an understanding of the Dhamma, when the indicators started to appear, you had no idea that there was a problem. You had no idea there was a problem. That's like the fuel gauge is pointing at E, empty, but you don't know that it's because your fuel tanks run dry. Now what would happen is, well, surely, clearly the car's going to come to a stop. The car's going to come to a stop not because the arrow is pointing at E. The car's going to come to a stop because there's not a drop of fuel in your fuel tank. That's why. Your fuel gauge is doing you a favor by telling you upfront, hey, you're running out of fuel, you had better go and refuel yourself. That's what the fuel gauge is telling you. So likewise, pleasure is not something to be disgusted about. Pleasure is to be understood as it really is. Pleasure is an indicator that there's a bigger problem. And that problem is ignorance. If you take it all the way through, because pleasure is an indicator that you're vexing. Had it not been for pleasure, you probably wouldn't have known. So this is a good indicator that you're vexing. So when you're sensing pleasure, take it back to vexation, and then ask yourself, why am I vexing? And also, I quite like the fact that, because vexation can be the fact that you have vexation. You can really there are three indicators for this, which is raga, desha, moha. So desire, aversion, and delusion. So when you experience pleasure, that's when we talk about desire. Because it's a very, I mean, in a worldly sense, I suppose you could say it's a positive indicator. It's a positive indication, relatively, right? Relatively, it's a positive indication that you're vexing. What? Desire. Aversion it's a negative indicator that you're vexing. Delusion, it's a neutral indicator that you're vexing. So you have a positive indicator that you're vexing, and that's called desire. There's a negative indicator that you're vexing, that's aversion, dvesha, and there's a neutral indicator that you're vexing, and that is delusion or moha. But they're all three of these are indicators that you're vexing. It's like having three fuel gauges on your dashboard. One fuel gauge, when the stick goes down to empty, it plays your favorite song. Just think about that. I'm just trying to help you figure, visualize this. It plays your favorite song. The second indicator, when it hits the E, when the stick goes down to E, it plays the same song, maybe sung by your ex-wife. So that's the last thing you want to hear. Okay, and then there's the neutral indicator. That's just playing some random song. You neither like it nor dislike it. So of these three, which would you prefer? So think about it, right? Of these three, which would you prefer to have as your indicator? Is it the last one, which was neutral, or is it the second one, which has your ex-wife singing that song, or is it, the actual singer? The most beautiful song that you really like it, and the original track. So clearly, it's going to be the first, right? So therefore, if you ask me, I prefer for pleasure to be the experience that's telling me that I'm vexing, rather than it being aversion or delusion. But of course, you need to first understand this though. Because if you have no understanding of the Dhamma, now pleasure is probably the worst thing. That's the last thing that I would be telling you. Because what does pleasure do? It kicks off the vicious cycle. If your belief set is that pleasure is pleasurable, then you have a problem. Because now you go back to the source and you attach further. Therefore, the vexing increases, and therefore the pleasure increases, and then go back again and again and again and again. So this is your vicious cycle. But when you have an understanding that pleasure is not pleasurable, now I would prefer pleasure to be the indicator that I'm vexing. Because after all, right, think about it, folks. Pleasure is when you get what you want, right? Pleasure is when you get what you want. I mean, that's the sensation. Pleasure is where you sense pleasure when you get what you want. To get what you want, do you not need to have done merits? Isn't it merit that brings you what you want? Right? And demerit is what takes away from you what you want. So tell me then, is it not your preference that your merits come and tell you that you're vexing, rather than your demerit coming and telling you that you're vexing? Right? So I think the answer becomes obvious. You'd prefer your merits to come and tell you that you're vexing. And this is why the Buddha says, do as much merit as you possibly can. I mean, not this is why the Buddha says, but he condones meritorious activities and deeds. Do as much merit as you possibly can. In other words, for me certainly, and I think you will agree with me, it's preferable for something that I like to come and tell me that I have a problem, or someone I like to come and tell me I have a problem. Not someone I don't like to come and tell me I have a problem, because now I have two problems. One, I don't like the guy who came and told me about it, and two, I don't like the problem. But at least when it's something I like coming and telling me, if I have an understanding of the Dhamma, that pleasure is not pleasurable, then my preference is pleasure. Okay? So I don't want to dwell on that any more than that, but hopefully you're understanding what I'm trying to express to you here. The point being, don't be disgusted with pleasure. Don't try to make pleasure your worst enemy. Because most of the time when you do your meditation, most of the times the things that you will pull out to as your meditation objects will be things that you sense pleasure in. It could be a person. It could be a girl to a guy, or maybe a guy to a girl. Maybe it's okay, let's just go to it one last time. Maybe it could be cake, or it could be biscuits, it could be fried rice, it could be your grandfather clock, it could be your watch, it could be your phone, it could be your tablet, it could be your computer game, it could be your films that you like to watch, your favorite actor, actresses, whatever. It could be anything. Right? So these things, when you experience them, they will bring you pleasure. But that's a good messenger. Now you have a preferable messenger, a good messenger telling you that there's a problem. At least the messenger is not here to fight with you. But when it's your demerit telling you you have vexation, now of course you have two problems. There's the experience of pain, and there's the pain also that you need to fight. Right? So don't fight with pleasure. Use pleasure as an indicator that there's a bigger problem. Use pleasure as an indicator to go back and find out the real problem. The real problem being ignorance. Because it is ignorance. In other words, thinking that something, thinking that what you believe it is what it really is, or not knowing what it really is. That is ignorance. Not knowing what it really is. That is where you went ahead and attached yourself. And it's because of that attachment that vexation arose. You are, seriously, thinking about it, those among you who sense pleasure and are and have an understanding of the Dhamma are so fortunate, because you have pleasure telling you that you have a problem. What if it was displeasure? What if it was aversion? What if it was, all the negative things there are that was telling you that you have a problem? I mean, it's like say you have, someone you love has passed away. Who do you prefer coming and relaying the message to you? Your best friend or your worst enemy? The chances are you'd prefer for your best friend to come and tell you that, because they'll be kind, they'll be gentle to you, and they'll know you, so they'll be very understanding, they'll be very sympathetic with you, they'll sit down, hold your hand, give you a hug. But your worst enemy, how's he or she gonna come and tell you, hey, guess what? Your mom's died. Now, so they're just gonna like throw it in your face, and the way they say it is gonna be more hurtful than the actual event sometimes. So you'd prefer for pleasure to be coming and telling you that you've got a problem. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is, don't fight with pleasure, because pleasure is not the culprit. Pleasure is not the problem. I'm talking about those who have understood that pleasure is not pleasurable. After all, meditation is for those who have understood that. The practice of meditation is useless for someone who believes that pleasure is pleasurable. What are you going to meditate on? You're going to continue. Otherwise, seriously, meditation is simply going back to the example that we have, the simile that we have used here. Meditation is teaching yourself, instructing yourself, contemplating that this ain't water, it's poison. This is not water, it's poison. This is not water, it's poison. It's continuing to teach yourself that. Using logic, using reason, using facts, using empirical evidence that this is not water, it's poison. How? Well, last time I drank it, see what happened to me. Not that this is not water, it's poison. Why? Someone said so. That's not good. If it's someone said so, then you're not convinced yet. Meditation is not for those people. Meditation is for those who know and who have understood without a shadow of a doubt. I'm still feeling that this is water, but I know for a fact that this is poison. I know that this is poison, but I still want to drink it because of the urge, that it's a deep-seated um, that ignorance. It's gone beyond just a view set, and deep down into your perceptions and into your consciousness. Okay, so your distortions are not simply at the view or the perspective level. They've gone down deep down into your perceptions and also into your consciousness. So once the perception or once the view has been rectified, once the perspective has been rectified, that's when one can work on cleansing and rectifying their perceptions and their consciousness. Okay, so meditation is for those people. In other words, a sotapanna. Meditation is not for those who are yet to become a sotapanna. I mean, of course, there are meditations that you can do, like, but they're not going to get you to nibbana. they'll take you to good place after this life. It will take you to a good place. A good place within inverted commas, because there's no such thing as a good place after all. Because remember, you can't be and happy at the same time. You can only be or you can happy. Right? So we know that. So coming back to ignorance then, we need to understand that ignorance is simply knowledge that is not the same as the truth. Knowledge that is not the same as the truth. Knowledge that does not reflect the truth. Knowledge that does not reflect the truth is ignorance. Knowledge which reflects the truth is wisdom. So in both cases, we're talking about knowledge. Knowledge is what you know. Knowledge is what you know. What you know is determined by what others have told you. Because knowledge is something that you accumulate. Knowledge is something you gather. Knowledge is something you collect through your associations with others. Okay? And ignorance is a problem because what you know about something determines what you're going to do with it. Or at least what you think about something determines what you're going to do with it. I'll quickly give you another example. I'm trying to throw you these examples from different angles so that at least one will really uh, click with you. Let's say um, someone gets married. Okay, someone gets married, and um, say a man gets married to a woman, takes the woman home, and he's now living with her. Uh, he believed when he got married to her that she would look after him, take care of him, be his best buddy, right? Attend to every each of his needs, and be his best friend, and essentially be a good wife, right? So that's what he thought she was going to be. It turns out that she's not any of those. So she doesn't look after him. She doesn't cook for him. She doesn't wash dishes or doesn't do any of that stuff. She doesn't carry his child. She doesn't do any of the things that he wants. And then some. What if, in addition to not doing all the things he wants, she also cheats on him? See, now, isn't that the straw that breaks the camel's back? Isn't that last nail in the coffin? Because some of you may know of people who've been in relationships like that. They say at the end of it, they're going for a divorce and they're saying, you know what, I had enough of her, or I had enough of him. How come, you ask? Well, you know what, I thought she was going to be this, she said he was going to be that, her parents said this, her brother said that, everyone said that she was the best thing that any man could ever have. So what did I do? I brought her home. And from the day she came home, she didn't cook for me, she didn't wash my clothes, she didn't do any of this stuff. She didn't even sweep the house, she didn't do anything. But I thought, hey ho, tough luck. I just drew the short straw. What can I do? Now she's at home, she's my wife, I'll just do the best I can. But then you know what happened? I found out that she's cheating on me. I could take it no more. Someone might say like that. So what they're saying is, I thought that this was good. It turns out that it was not good. But then I realized not only was it not good, it was terrible. It was what ruined me. It was destroyed me because it was not only not good, but it completely destroyed me, did every bad thing it could to me. That's when I decided, that's it, we're not going to be together anymore. See, I want you guys, when you sit down for your meditation, to take it all the way there. No matter what you're concentrating on, no matter what you're focusing on, no matter what your meditation object is, whether that's a plate of biscuits, whether that's fried chicken, whether that's a burger, whether that's your grandfather clock, no matter what it is, whether it's a portrait, whether it's your wedding ring or whatever you're attached to, don't stop it at, it's not pleasurable, it's not joyful, it's not essenceless, yeah, it's none of these things. Don't stop there, because then you've just moved from reverse to neutral. Neutral ain't good enough. What you need to do is go forward, as in take the next step. The next step is where you actually look at what really happened to you. This is where that empirical evidence is important. Look at what really happened to you. There's the what you thought it was. It didn't do any of those things, but really what happened to me? After I drank the contents of the bottle, not only did it not quench my thirst, because I thought it was water, so it was supposed to quench my thirst, not only did it not do that, but what it did to me was it made me unconscious. I had to be hospitalized. It ruined my liver, ruined my kidneys because it turned out to be poison. Not only was it not water, but it was also poison. Don't anyone, not even your worst enemy, would I give this to, because it's poison. So don't stop at not being pleasurable, not being joyful, not being essential. Take it the next step forward. Use your life experiences. Look at what really happened to you when you actually thought it was good and you went and attached to it. What really happened to you in the end? In the end, what happened to you? At the end of the day, what happened to you? At the end of the day, in the end, well, it was not just it didn't offer you pleasure. It was not just it didn't offer you joy. It was not just it didn't offer you essence. It wasn't essential. But actually, it ended up vexing you. It ended up giving you suffering, dukkha, dukkha, sankara, dukkha, abhisankara, and viparinama dukkha. And it was essenceless, useless, waste of time. That is anicca dukkha anatta. And when you contemplate on that, that's the time when actually the right set of belief will displace the wrong set of beliefs. Until then, what's going to happen is the wrong set of beliefs is just going to start shaking. Yeah, it's not that. Yeah, it's not pleasurable. Okay, what to do? So. It's not joyful. Hey ho, what can we do? It's not essential. Yeah, tough. That's not good enough. If you want your wrong set of beliefs to be displaced by the right set of beliefs, you need to take it all the way. Take it all the way. Take it all the way and contemplate on the vexatiousness. I just made that up, I think. But you know what I mean. Contemplate on how it's vexatious because that's what happened to you in the end. You ended up vexing. Isn't that the best proof there is? You ended up suffering. Fear, grief, and abhisankara, all of that is evidence that you ended up suffering. So it wasn't just that there was no joy in it, but actually you ended up suffering. So you can surely replace this label joyful with the label sufferable. Why sufferable and not suffering? Because you need to do something before you suffer. Remember, no amount of poison in a bottle can kill you unless you drink it. That's why if you don't drink it, which is this bit here, if you don't drink it, now it does not matter whether this is poison or orange juice. It's not going to do anything to you. What matters what's in this bottle is if you decide to do this, which is drink it. Now, everything matters. Every bit of it matters. Now you need to look at its constituent elements. Now you need to look at what's in the bottle. Now you need to look at the expiry date. Now you need to look at what else might have gotten into it. Someone spiked your drink, right? You need to look at all of those things if you decide to drink it. If you don't decide to drink it, now who cares what's in it? Because it couldn't affect you one bit. That's the nature of an arahant who has no attachment to this world. So they don't attach to the world. Because they don't attach to the world, it's no longer their concern whether something is pleasurable or vexatious. Because they just don't attach. I mean, that's just one way to look at it. The reason they don't attach is because it's vexatious, right? So let's not forget that. The reason they don't attach is because they have complete comprehension that something's vexatious. But the point being, it does not matter now whether it's pleasurable or vexatious because, well, they're not attaching to it anymore. The power to attach has been uprooted. They've lost the ability to attach, never to be replaced again. Okay, so when you contemplate, when you do your meditation, I want you all to take it all the way there. Don't stop at it's not pleasurable. Not pleasurable is not the same as vexatious. Not joyful is not the same as sufferable. Not essenseful is not the same as essenceless. Just like neutral gear is not the same as first gear. Right? So I want you all to focus on that and concentrate on that, reflect on this. Because next week when we gather back to do our meditation, we'll be spending some time focusing on this. So I'll be getting you to, so get some practice over this week, because what we'll be doing this next week, um, so spoiler alert, what we'll be doing next week, some of that time will certainly be to think about the things that you're vexing about, right? The things that you are suffering about in your life, and take it all the way. Take it all the way. Not stop at this is not pleasurable, this is not joyful, this is not essential, because then you're going to be like me with those seashells on my bookshelf. No one asked me to get rid of them, because no one came around and said, "Did you know that seashells are cancerous, or they're carcinogens?" No one said that. Had they said that, had we known that, if that's what had we'd been informed of, then the next thing you know, they'd be out of the house. But if it's not going to cause you any harm, then the fact that it's not going to cause you any good is not so much a concern. But when something's going to cause you harm, now, of course, you want it out. So we need to take it all the way there. Okay? So that's what I wanted to get across to you. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you need to, I would strongly urge you to take some time and maybe go through the recording again. It'll be on YouTube, and prepare yourself for next week's meditation program. Whether it's going to be at the monastery, or we're going to be doing it, so e-meditation. If we're going to do an e-meditation, or we're going to do it at the monastery, that's yet to be determined. Please watch out for the announcements as they become available to us through the course of the week. So we'll keep you informed. But as a closing remark, please, I ask you again, I'm almost pleading to you now, please don't waste your time. Right? There's only so much you need to know about coronavirus to keep you safe, to keep yourself safe. Right? You don't need to know how many legs it's got, right? Or what it has for dinner. You don't need to know all that stuff. Let the scientists worry about that, because the scientists are there to prosper the world. Your job is to get the hell out of here, right? Because you are blessed to be in receipt of the Buddha's teaching. They're probably not. So you've got the teaching, you've got the medicine, you've got the cure to, you've got a permanent fix. Scientists are not going to come up with a permanent fix, because next thing, now it's corona, next time it'll be marona, and then next time it'll be something else, ona. After all, ona is a problem, right? So you can fix yourself once and for all by getting the hell out of here, because when you're not here, the things that affect those who are here don't affect you anymore, right? So get out of here, so that no matter what happens here, it's no longer your concern. Like, it does not matter what's in the bottle if you're not going to be drinking it. Okay, so I'm going to close with those remarks. Please pay attention to that bit of advice. Please take that on board seriously. Our monks at the monastery are constantly being reminded by Guru Swami Mahanse. We don't get any visitors now these days. Over the last couple of weeks, no one's been coming to the monastery, which I suppose from a very selfish perspective, it's all the better. Please don't take that in the wrong way, because what it means is now, every moment that we spend, we are able to focus on the Dhamma, concentrate on that, and we can do our meditation sessions, and also do as much as we possibly can to get the sermons out to you. As you know, a lot of material we have, a lot of library video footage of the sermons that we've been doing in the Samma Samadhi programs, and none of them we were able to get out. So now we are starting to stream them. So of course, that the time that has become available to us, we are also investing back in order that they help you in this difficult time. So please make use of them. If you're able to join in and listen and understand the Sinhala sermons, then please do so. We'll also try and make some English sermons available. I think there were one or two sermons that we had done to a small group of people. Some sermons we did over the course of the last year, Time permitting, we will get them out also. But finally, the last thing I want to say is remember and understand that what you are spending is human life. This is human life that is passing you by with every moment. Human life which is invaluable. All the time you spend in front of the TV with that mobile phone in your hand, going through Facebook, that book, this book, every book there is, you can't buy that time back. When that time's gone, it's gone. And remember the amount of merit that you had to surrender in order to get this every passing moment of human life that is ticking by. Don't be the one who regrets. Just okay. Sorry to make this so vivid, but I want you to think about it. Right? Imagine you got infected with this corona bug. Imagine you got it, right? And now you're bedridden, and the doctors come and tell you, you know what? Sorry, we've tried everything, but we can't save you. You've got 72 hours, so 3 last days of your life. If you have any understanding of the Dhamma, what you'll be telling yourself is, why did I waste all that time doing all these unnecessary things, all those abhisankara, when what I should have done was do my 15-minute meditations, was listen to the sermons, was practice on the Dhamma, contemplate on the Dhamma. You'll be kicking yourself in the back. I would hate for any of you to find yourself in that situation. Because when that day comes, it's going to be so disheartening. The pain of death is going to be so little compared to the regret that you will experience. The pain of death will be negligible compared to the regret that you will feel at that time. All the things that you had left undone that you should have. Please don't be the one to find yourself in that situation, because you don't need to. Right? So take action now. Use the time that you have. This is precious time. Now, of course, there's no traveling you can do these days. You can't get about. You got to stay at home. With the island-wide curfew and all that going on. Right? So make use of that time to your advantage, like we do at the monastery. Make use of this time. You don't have people visiting you, no pesky relations and neighbors coming and knocking on your doors and at ungodly hours, right? And spending time talking to you. Right? This is a gift, if you ask me. And you're probably not going to get one of these things for a good few years again. So make use of this opportunity to practice the path. For someone who is seriously on the path to Nibbana, these are God-given opportunities. Please don't take it this the wrong way, because one could think, how could you? People's dying around the world and you're saying this is a God-given opportunity. Please understand what I'm trying to say. If you can't understand, don't listen to these sermons. Of course, you understand what I'm trying to get across here. Please use this time wisely. If there are those who have been infected and affected, help as much as you possibly can. These are all, it's meritorious to help people. Right? Again, they're all humans who have been born in the time of the Buddha, right? Or at least in the era where his Dhamma still prevails. So unlike humans born in any other times, these are, even that man somewhere you know, in Timbuktu, wherever that may be, right? Even that guy's lucky and fortunate because he's been born in a time during which the Buddha's Dhamma prevails. You remember from the Seven Wonders video, right? So do what you can to help others, but make sure you do what you need to do to help yourself, because after all, that's all that matters in the end. Just one last thing I'll say. It was quite disheartening and quite um, shocking, I suppose, in some ways, to learn that in some countries which have been deeply affected, without naming any countries, some countries which have been deeply affected by this, apparently, they have stopped treating the elderly, and this. Remember what we've been talking all along. Remember what Guru Swaminathan said about becoming a rodder. Right? Those people, the elderly people of today, are the people who build these countries, who build them up from scratch. The roads that we walk on, and drive on, and the trees that we take shelter from, the foods that we eat. They were cultivated. The lands were cultivated by our elders, those who were here before us. And then, when all is said and done, when everything, every ounce of energy that we could take from them have been used up, now who cares what happens to you? Becomes the story, right? So I don't know, that's what I'm saying. Just make sure you don't live to regret. Don't be the one on your deathbed saying, this is what Swami Mahanse said I should have done. Oh, it's too late now. Please don't be that guy. Okay, so I won't talk about that anymore. Let's take a moment to transfer the merits that we have all acquired today, and we will bring the sermon to a close. Okay, so first and foremost, let us all, once again, before we conclude the sermon, remind ourselves that we are extremely fortunate to be initiated to the Buddha's teaching because of his infinite compassion towards all sentient beings, because he took every trouble, every effort there was to redeem himself as well as all other sentient beings, including you and I, through samsara. Let us also not forget the bhikkhu, bhikkhunis, upasak, upasikas, who since time immemorial protected and preserved the teaching of the Dhamma of the Buddha in pristine form and passed it down as in the form of the Tripitaka as well as as a noble lineage. Let us also not forget the monks and nuns who are resident in your local temples and your local nunneries, who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Let us also transfer merits to Guru Swami Mahanse as well as all the other monks who are resident in this monastery and the Anagarikas who are also resident here, as well as the Anagarikas who are making great efforts to practice the path and achieve their salvation. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Let us also transfer merits to our parents who may be among the living today, teachers, siblings, cousins, grandparents, and so on and so forth, as well as those who may be indisposed currently and who are in need of medical attention and as well. Let us transfer merits to all of them, and may these merits help them to achieve good health, so that they are then able to achieve their liberation, achieve their salvation, achieve Nibbana. May through the power of all these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, demons, and the dead, who have long since, over the years and since time immemorial, protected and preserved the Sambuddha Shasana. May they all rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, and may through the power of these merits, if any of them have today been born in the woeful planes, may they be able to redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all those who have gotten involved and taken part and contributed to making these sermons available to you and making these events a success, including those who have taken great efforts to inform you about these sermons in making and also broadcasting these sermons, as well as those who either today or in the past been involved in the production of the technology that we use today, as a result of which we are able to easily and conveniently convey the teaching of the Buddha throughout the world, no matter where you are today. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, as well as those among you who take great efforts to disseminate the teaching of the Buddha in various forms, either through the recordings or also in transliterating these sermons and getting them through to people who are destitute in samsara. May they all be able to rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, and may through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to the members of the armed forces as well as the police force, those who dedicated their lives to protecting and preserving the peace and harmony of our nation. May they all rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, as well as those who might have passed away in the face of natural calamities and disasters, such as the one that we are experiencing right now, but also those that we have had the misfortune to experience in the past: tsunamis, landslides, earthquakes, and so on and so forth, not just in this country but also in other parts of the world throughout the globe. May they all rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today. Let us also take a moment to transfer merits to all those men and women throughout the world who have dedicated themselves to leading our nations, leading our countries, to protecting and preserving the peace and harmony of our countries and our nations, to investing time to keeping our countries safe from natural disasters as much as man-made ones, and developing and cultivating our countries and nations. And it is because of them today we are able to focus our efforts and our energies towards our salvation. May they all rejoice in the merits that we have all acquired today, and may through the power of these merits, if any of them have today been born in woeful states, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plains. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may through the merits that we have all acquired today, by engaging in numerous meritorious deeds, by making offerings to the Noble Triple Gem, by listening to the Dhamma, preaching the Dhamma, contemplating on the truth, may all the merits that we have all acquired today, may through all the merits we have all acquired today, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahatun Mahanses in this land, in our very lives itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may through the power of all the merits that we have all acquired, in this life itself and in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. The members of the Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to you. Raga ginnin nidatva, Dvesha ginnin nidatva, Moha ginnin nidatva, Nibbana parama sukhayan Sukhita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayan Sukhita taravetva, Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo, Nibbana parama sukhayan Sukhita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayan Sukhita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayan Sukhita taravetva. Raga gineva, Dvesha giniveva, Moha giniveva, Nivan sapa labeva, Nivan sapa labeva, Nivan sapa labeva. තුනුරුවන්ගේ සුවිසි අනන්ත මහා ගුණ බෙලෙන් සියලු ලෝක සියලු සත්වයෝම නිබ්බාන පරම සුඛයෙන් සුඛිතතර වෙත්වා. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of desire. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of aversion. May I and all beings in all worlds be freed from the fires of delusion. May I and all beings in all worlds attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. May the Noble Triple Gem be with you all forever. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So on that note, we will close the live stream. May the Noble Triple Gem